If you want to continue to follow our adventure, click subscribe. So you don't miss anything, click the bell notification. A little over a month ago, I made a video where I suggested that you take a 30-day RV living challenge. I'll put a link to that video right here. And in that video, I talked about maybe setting up a little spot in your house or your apartment about the size of your van or whatever it is you intended to live in, and actually simulate living in a van. I got a lot of feedback from it, good, positive feedback, got a lot of negative feedback too. And I am going to go through a specific reply here in a little bit, but I wanted to go through it first. A lot of the negative feedback suggested, well, living in your house in a little small spot is not the same as out here living on the road. Well, I beg to differ. I mean, I've been stuck inside this camper for probably 3 to 4 weeks because it's so cold. Now, we've had to stay in the winter 2 years in a row now in a cold climate because of, Carolyn's daughter is very sick with cancer. In that video where I talked about the 30-day challenge, I talked about, maybe setting up an electrical system where you operate off a battery. And I suggested that you get a battery charger from Walmart. They're like 40 or 50 bucks. A battery. You get yourself a Marine RV battery. You can get that at Walmart for about 80 bucks. 120 amp hour battery. And again, this is all simulation. And maybe a 750 watt inverter. I think that was 40 bucks. So within a couple $100, you could actually have an electrical system that you could go through your simulation without spending a fortune. I suggested that you set up a heating system, maybe a Mr. Heater portable buddy, or like we're using, we use our propane Coleman stove. Talked about having to deal with the toiletries, depending on how you were going to set up your situation. Maybe a bucket with a trash can liner. We talked about having to get water. If you're going to do the 30-day challenge, you were going to have to go out and now see it's 30 days. That's 4 weeks. Now you can only stay at a campground for 2 weeks. That means you would have to find a spot to get water. And for those 2 weeks, you get water at that spot. But in 2 weeks, you were going to have to shift locations, find a new spot to get water. Because that's the way the reality of this works. Cooking on your propane stove. Now, if you're obviously, since we did this in October, a lot of areas are very cool right now, so cooking on the stove wouldn't have been a problem. But in the summertime, unfortunately, if you're going to try this in the summertime, cooking inside your camper gets very hot very quick. And then finally doing your dishes, we're going to have to figure out how to do dishes in a pan. Are you going to heat your water on the propane stove? All those things. It was good. I thought this would be a good little experiment to see if you're really up to the challenge, staying in a van or camper or whatever for 30 days. Well, I've had several people tell me that they gave it a try, and I actually got one to give me some feedback on this. So James gave this thing a try, and he said when I got the message, it was 26 days out of 30, and he said only 4 more days to go. Number one, he says it's at least twice as hard working as a house. And I know what he's talking about. He posted this on a video where I talked about how much more effort it is to live in a van than it is a house. For example, charging your batteries. In a house, you come on, you turn on your light switch. Here, you got to start the generator, you got to charge the batteries, you got to be able to stay put long enough for that generator to charge. Throughout the week, I charge my batteries at 10 amps. And it charges it up within 2 or 3 hours, real quick, no problem. But once a week, I got to stick around and charge the batteries on a 2 amp cycle so I can get them to top off. Otherwise, you'll notice your batteries will start to kind of step down. Each time you charge it, it steps down where it won't last as long. And by the end of the week, your batteries only last for a few hours before you got to recharge it again. So if you do that top off, then it starts back down like that. So even with solar panels, you would have to do that. Van is way too small for this lifestyle. I live in a 6-foot by 6-foot box. Now I did make an effort to really maximize storage area. I got the cab over that I can store all kinds of stuff in. And then underneath the bed, I got where I can store my water, my generator, all the things that you don't want in your living space. But as far as living space, we have our bed and we have a refrigerator, and then we have a coma stove. To give you some perspective on this, I'm going to step back just for a second. Now I'm at my door, and this is the bed. So this is your living space, and when you're out here in the cold weather, this is where you stay most of the time, is right here on the bed. Now, you know, you got to do your activities over here to cook and different things. James says, water is hard to get and fast to use. Boy, that is absolutely true. Now, I've watched other videos where I've seen people talk about how much water they use. And a typical person, apparently, based on the, you know, the short sample size that I've gotten, can usually survive on 20 gallons of water a week. So that means if they go get their 40-gallon tanks filled, they can live 2 weeks out there without having to move around. Well, with Carolyn and I, that's a little bit more difficult because we're both using 20 gallons a week. That's 40 gallons. And again, I can only carry 40 gallons. So every week we have to go get water. James says the generator is a pain and never starts when in a situation where you need it. Yeah. Well, I don't have a lot of problems with it starting. I've had a few problems, but it is a pain. You know, you got to get up first thing in the morning. I get up 6 o'clock in the morning, and with it being so cold, I mean, it's just, it's so much, it's just too much for me to deal with. But I go outside and I start the generator. It's harder to start in the winter. And every 2 weeks, I have to do preventive maintenance on it. I got to change the oil, clean spark plugs. I got to make sure the air filter is clean. And then it has this little spark arrestor on it that I have to clean. And this is this number 6 is the one that James really convinced me that he was really doing this lifestyle, because he's absolutely right on this one. He says, it's too hot when I have the heater on and it's too cold when I don't. And that's just the way, especially if he's using a Mr. Heater Portable Buddy, it has 2 settings, high and low. And low will cook you out of your camper. The thermostat is, you get up, you shut it off, and when you get cold, you turn it back on. This year we're in a little bit better shape, and you know, people are going to criticize me. It's just the way it goes. But I've been using a Coleman stove, and there's an adjustable flame. It's got 2 burners, and I can adjust the flame, which is a huge deal. Thanks, James, for the comment and the feedback. Thanks for watching. Click like if you like the video, and happy travels.